Hello everyone, my name is Shani Jones and this is KNKY, which stands for Know the New Kinky You. I'm your resident certified sex coach, certified through Sex Coach University, and we are continuing our conversation about transitions of sex during our different phases of relationships. So part 2 is talking about life as a single person. Now, as I start the series, the first thought that pops into my head is the 1990s TV series Living Single. And if you don't know what that is, I implore you to look it up and watch it. Imagine yourself, if you're not currently a young person, first starting out in the world. Today I think it's called adulting, where you find yourself in this transition from being a kid where someone is taking care of you to having to really take care of yourself. And perhaps it means getting your own place and finding a job and learning how to navigate the world. When you're young, anything is possible. You haven't quite experienced all of what the world has to offer. And in a lot of ways, you're waiting for the opportunity to see what's out there. And I think this is a period where we are most experimental. Perhaps we haven't developed a type and we want to find out what floats our boat. Being a single young person means that you don't have accountability to any one person. You can choose to spend your time with whomever and how many ever people you want. Or perhaps you're on the other end of the spectrum where you find it difficult to be in social situations. You're actually not very comfortable meeting new people and getting close to someone that you don't know. Sex during this period can be very tricky. I think it's a bit different now than when I was coming up. When I was growing up, there was a lot of negative social stigma, especially around women who decided to have multiple sexual partners, especially if they were open about it. As a single person, we remove the obligation of being committed to someone. But that doesn't mean that emotions can't develop or that people won't feel territorial. If you decide to be intimate, especially with multiple people, the most important thing to do is protect yourself. Especially young people, because again, you feel like you own the world and nothing can hurt you. But you also have to be smart. You have to know who you're dealing with and what may lay ahead of you when you're dealing with that person. Now, again, this doesn't mean that you have to disclose every detail of your life, but you should make certain assurances that you're doing everything possible to protect yourself and them. Take, for instance, the scenario of a one-night stand. You meet somebody, there's a spark, and all you know is that you want to be physical with them. Anything beyond that may not be very important in the moment. But what you have to do is consider that off chance scenario of something going wrong. Rape happens. Sexually transmitted infections happen. Unplanned pregnancies happen. You should never go into a situation just blind. You should know who you're going to bed with, enough so that you can reach out to them in case of an emergency. Now, let's talk about the other end of the spectrum. We brought it up a little bit earlier. And we talked about this in the past, where we have young adults who have chosen not to engage in sex. And again, depending on where you are in life, you may have heard of the 40-year-old virgin. Now, in most cases, we're not talking 40 years old. We're talking, probably late 20s to early 30s. And for these young people, it may seem like a daunting task to maintain their virginity in a world where sex is just so prevalent. Adult virgins tend to be an anomaly in our society, but these people have chosen to hold on to something that is very precious. Our virginity is something that once lost, we can never get back. So, in a lot of ways, it makes sense to hold on to your virtue and be prepared emotionally and mentally to give yourself over to another person. As far as physically, I don't think that any of us are ever really prepared for what's going to happen until it happens. And what we experience looks different depending upon a lot of different factors. I just hope that your experience is one that you will be able to reflect upon without regret. Now, being a single middle-aged or a senior age person looks a lot different. I have a friend who is coming off a divorce and he wants to get back out there. But after being married for so long, you're much more reserved about who you let in your life. And although sex is desired, the level of importance that you put on it is not the same as when you were young and free. You have to be much more practical and much more conscious of who's in your space and how that energy and how that proximity affects you, especially if you have children. I have another friend who was in a long-term relationship for a while, and when things didn't work out, her sexual freedom emerged. And you know, what you think is that there are stories, theories where we have, as men and women, our sexual peaks and how we're supposed to be able to deal with it, right? Everybody's different, and so we can't put what society says is supposed to happen with us into much regard. We have to go with who we are as our own individual sexual selves. Now, my friend who is now perhaps middle-aged has embraced her youth. And I mention these stories because not every situation, again, is going to be the same. There are going to be different roads being single and how single life impacts your sexuality. I know people that have been single for a long time and sex isn't even on their radar. There may be a whisper or a thought in the back of their heads, but it's an every now and again thing, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It just kind of goes to the wayside. It's not something that there's no value in sex after a while when you've been alone and you haven't engaged in it. It's just not a factor anymore. They've been so conformed to their ways that incorporating another person, even just for the purposes of sex, can be considered a major disruption in their day-to-day routine. So, as single people, you have to decide how you want to live the rest of your life. Are you interested in a relationship? Do you want to live out your glory days with sexual vibrancy? Are you content with things the way that they are? Whether that be multiple sexual partners that all serve a purpose and that purpose is to make you happy, or the single person that is trying to dip their big toe in the water and see what happens, or the person where sex is a distant memory. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely going to be phases between, so you know, this is a general forecast into possibilities of what sex as a single person means. There are a lot of things to consider, and again, it depends on where you are in life and what's important to you. If you're not happy, you can change your situation. Because for some of us, as we move from, you know, being single to trying to find somebody special, we find that we want to commit. It's up to us to define what that happiness looks like, what the role of sex, what it plays in our lives, how it plays in our lives, and the dynamics of it in a relationship or not. So we will talk more about it in the next video, where we talk about sex and dating. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it. Please subscribe to the channel. Comment on the videos below. Everything I do across all social media is at DOYOUKNKY. I will see you again soon on the next video. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new updates on weekly content. Thank you very much. My name is Shani Jones.